Hello, everyone, and it's been a few days since the official release of Chivalry Remastered, and I've been getting a lot of comments and questions about how to play the campaign, right? So, things in terms of recruitment and other sorts of mechanics. So, today I thought it would be a good idea to just make a quick video about a basic guide to some of the basic mechanics of Chivalry that work a little bit differently from the vanilla game and from Medieval 2 and other medieval era mods. So, in just a moment, we'll load it up here and I will discuss some of the major unique factors in Chivalry that are probably not present in many other medieval Total War campaigns. So, let's get into it. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about in the campaign, we are playing as Norman Sicily, by the way. The first thing I want to mention is recruitment. I want to talk a little bit about recruitment. So, I've been getting a ton of comments about naval recruitment. So, a lot of people saying, I can't recruit ships. Ships are not recruitable. It's a bug. They are recruitable, right? So, they're the first port building, in vanilla, you have the port and then you can recruit some boats, right? So in Chivalry, that's not the case. So you have a port village. This is the first building in the sort of port building tree, right? And again, I'm showing off these new big description cards that are a part of the latest UI patch in Rome Remastered. So let's pull up the building browser here. And where was I? Here I was. So we have the port village here, right? Well, now with the port village, you cannot, it improves your trade income a little bit and population growth, but it does not give you access to ships. And then the building after port village is the harbor settlement, which you need a minor city to be able to construct, but that also doesn't give you ships, right? However, there's another building tree here called the Safe Port tree. And then Safe Port goes to Harbor Protection and Wharf. Okay? So if we go to Safe Port, you can see it gives you access to Siculo Greek sailors, right? In terms of units. But then the building after Safe Port is the Harbor Protection and Wharf. And Harbor Protection and Wharf is the building that gives you access to galley fleets. Okay. And this is basically the case for all the factions. What you have to do is construct a safe port, and then you get access to the military wharf, and then that wharf gives you access to ships. Now, the issue here is that not every province has access to safe port. Okay, this is to show that you couldn't just build a military fleet anywhere. You needed to have a province that had a proper bay where you could build a proper port or wharf where you could then build a proper navy, right? And so you need to have the safe port to do that. And if your province does not have access to safe port, then you cannot construct naval units in that province. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about in this section is just regular recruitment, right? So Chivalry is a little bit different from vanilla. It's not your standard barracks, right? So like at the beginning here, at the beginning here in Sicily, you have access to a few units. You can construct, not construct, this isn't civilization. You can recruit levy watchmen. These are kind of last resort guard type infantry. They're very cheap. They take 3 turns to recruit. In normal Chivalry, I'm going to revamp this because now in Remastered we have access to an ability to make the AI not want to recruit too many levy units, right? So I will be changing that up a bit. And then you have access to Saracen heavy archers, some spear militia, and early mercenary knights. Okay? So all of these are done through different units. So you get access to the Saracen heavy archers and the early mercenary knights through the town and market rights buildings. So there is a building tree in Chivalry called rights. Okay, so you get town and market rights for your building once you get to a large town. That's when you get the ability to construct town and market rights. And then once your town grows to a minor city, you get access to city rights. And city rights actually gives you access to emissaries. Additionally, there are big city rights, and that gives you access to the most advanced unit in Chivalry at the moment, the High Era Mercenary Knights. Now, this is pretty good, right? But there's also another building tree. This is the control posts tree. And the control posts falls under military. It's one of the military buildings. So control posts and then city barracks estates, right? So control posts gives you access to recruiting spear militia. Okay. And then with city barracks, you get access to Italian city militia, which is of course extremely important for the Italian factions. Okay. But additionally, you have several other important building trees that give you access, that give you recruitment, right? And perhaps one of the most important ones is the land ownership tree of buildings. So land ownership gives you access to levy infantrymen who you can recruit with. They have 0-turn recruitment for them, so you can actually build up a garrison very quickly if you want, though I don't recommend it. These guys are not very good last resort type units. But these sergeant infantrymen are quite good. They're kind of the lowest tier spear unit you can get that actually have a bonus fighting cavalry. Okay? But this land ownership building gives you access to land gift feudum, right, which gives you access to certain types of knights. And then as you get feudal province estates, you can get vassal knights and vassal foot knights, okay? And then province castles, so castles dotted throughout the province, gives you access to better knights, more experienced knights, and more tax income, because you have a fortified province. But of course, to construct those buildings, you need to have other buildings like feudal horse breeder, right? And you can see the requirements below, actually in the red under requires. And this is actually quite important to note. So the building trees in Chivalry are a little bit, they're more complex than vanilla. They're not as complex as Europa Barbarorum per se, but they are still pretty complex. Some of the most complex for a medieval era mod, certainly. And of course, that's pretty much everything I have to say about recruitment. Of course, there are a couple other buildings that give recruitment, but I will talk about them in a little bit. So the next thing I wanted to talk about are religions. Okay, so in Chivalry Remastered, or in the original Chivalry, I should say, there are 3 religions, of course, and this had to do with limitations in the original Rome Total War engine. So, in the original Chivalry, you had Christianity, paganism / heresy / non-confirmation, and you had Islam. So 3 religions. Now, that, of course, meant that a lot of the detail was sort of lost. Now, Chivalry had its own way of showing that detail in terms of the mechanics. However, I feel that that's not going to work here, and it would be better to put more detail in. So, of course, I have done so. And what I've done is I've split Christianity into 3 major religions. Okay, so you have Catholicism, and you have several Catholic factions. So Sicily, the Papal States, Pisa, Aragon, Castile-Leon, France, England, Holy Roman Empire, Denmark, Poland, Hungary. And yeah, I think that's it for the Catholic factions, right? And Bohemia. Sorry about that. And Bohemia tucked in there. Now, of course, I've also added Eastern Orthodoxy. Okay, so we have a few factions that are Eastern Orthodox. So we have the Byzantines, the Bulgarians. I've changed up the Bulgaria. I've given them Skopje, actually, which they had taken for a short time during the Vojte Rebellion. So they have an extremely tough start. And the fact that they are no longer a horde faction makes it even tougher. But the AI Bulgarians were actually going after Rome and destroying the Papal States like 60% of the time, which was too ridiculous for me. But we also have, in terms of Orthodox factions, Kiev, and I'm going to be adding Novgorod quite soon. And we have a new faction I've added, aside from Bulgaria, and that is Georgia. Kingdom of Georgia, Eastern Orthodox faction in the Caucasus. And additionally, unlike other mods, I have added yet another branch of Christianity, which only one major faction has. It's the default religion of only one major faction, and that is Apostolic Christianity. This represents the non-Chalcedonian Armenian Church and the other Oriental Orthodox churches. So Oriental Orthodox is different from Eastern Orthodox. So the Coptic Church is Oriental Orthodox. The Assyrian Church is Oriental Orthodox. The Church of the East is Oriental Orthodox. And I just felt that putting Oriental Orthodox, even though it's the technical term, I felt that putting that as well as Eastern Orthodox would just be too many words, would make it look a little clunky. So I chose the term apostolic to represent this. And again, only Cilicia and Armenia has this as its state religion, as its default religion. And that is represented with the Armenian cross. Islam, I am going to divide. I have just not gotten that far. And paganism as well. So the only pagan factions are the Pecheneg hordes here in Byzantine Paristrion, as well as the Cuman Khanate. Okay. But in terms of Islam, we have the Sultanate of Rome, the Danishmendid Emirate, the Grand Seljuks, the blue here, the Fatimid Caliphate, the Zirid Emirate, and the Almoravid Empire, the Moors. And that's pretty much it in terms of religions. And actually, in doing so, we also talked about all the factions. So I have to say, the factions in Chivalry Remastered, this is a very work-in-progress list. So there are going to be more factions added, of course, including Genoa, Venice, a few other secret factions. Perhaps, Scotland is definitely coming. Please stay tuned for that. Novgorod is coming. Norway will also be coming. Norway will be quite fun to have. As well as a few other factions. I'm going to be actually adding many vassals of the Grand Seljuk Empire, because actually the Grand Seljuks are quite strong at the start. So, yeah, they need vassals to kind of break them apart. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about the Crusade mechanics in Chivalry Remastered. So I have added some Crusade mechanics. So there is the emergent faction called the Crusader states. And when it's under AI control, the Crusader stack emerges either near Anavarza, near Antioch, or near Edessa. So in one of those provinces, and it's semi-random, right? It kind of depends on the starting situation. So I think that actually adds a lot to the replayability factor here. However, if the Crusader state faction is under player control, then the Crusader army starts near Nicaea or Nicomedia. Okay, so actually, and that is somewhat semi-random, and of course, since the early era campaign starts in 1072, the situation can be quite random, right? So you could have a situation where the Byzantines are quite strong, or the Byzantines are really weak, or the Danishmends are strong, and the Sultanate of Rum is weak, or Kilikian Armenia is strong, or the Grand Seljuks are really strong, and that really changes up the gameplay there. That could be a real disaster campaign. And that is the Emergent Crusades faction I've added. However, I have also ported in the original Chivalry Crusade mechanics. So if you are one of the traditional crusading factions, like Norman Sicily, and you move into the Levant and conquer a province that has the Crusader state hidden resource, like Antioch, for example. Excuse me. Then you have the ability to construct several building chains that are only for Crusader factions. Okay, so I'm trying to think here. Will it show up in the building tree if I don't have that province under my control? And yeah, I don't think it does show up. But actually, it'll be a good surprise for you. So basically, the first thing you want to do as a Crusader faction is construct Crusader State Proclamation. Now, this increases Catholic religion spread, right? So by default, these provinces have Islamic religion spread, right? Especially like in the south here, Jerusalem, Sidon, Tripoli, okay? So you want to construct Crusader State Proclamation. It really increases public order. It really increases Catholic religion spread, and it'll also give your noblemen good traits, right? And then after that, you get access to Crusader churches, Catholic churches. You get access to, what did I want to say? Crusader state estates. So like Frank estates in the Levant, and that'll give you access to Crusader knights. And then you have access to hospital buildings, for example, which gives you access to Hospitaller knights and other order units. And that's just really nice, right? So you get stronger over time as long as you construct the proper Crusader buildings. Now, that's not the only Crusade mechanic in Chivalry, right? The Levant Crusades. You also have Baltic Crusades. So there are a bunch of pagan provinces up in the north here. Okay, so Vilnius, Riga, Ravala, Trusas, Gdansk. So, actually, if you play as, I don't know, let's say Denmark, and you conquer Trusas, let's say a pagan settlement, or Riga, you get access to Baltic Crusader state buildings. And those buildings give you access to northern Crusader units, like Teutonic Knights. Okay, there's a whole Teutonic roster in Chivalry, so that is actually quite nice in the north, and you can use your Teutonic armies to invade Novgorod and Kiev. Additionally, there is a Reconquista mechanic, so Aragon and Castile get access to Reconquista-type buildings in provinces that have the Reconquista hidden resource. And that gives you access to certain Reconquista order units, such as the Knights of Santiago. Okay, so that is pretty much a rundown of the Crusader mechanics in Chivalry Total War, and I think it's quite nice. As I said, there is the emergent Crusader States faction that acts on its own as the AI or under player control. But you also have the old Crusader mechanics, in which the player decides if they want to do a crusade or not, right? So you don't have to, right? But if you do it, it's quite fun, and you get access to a lot of nice buildings. And the AI might want to do it as well because Jerusalem is in all these guys' victory conditions, right? So the HRE, France, England, Pisa, all of their victory conditions include Jerusalem and Antioch and those Crusader state provinces. Okay. Now, last thing I wanted to talk about was public order. So in Chivalry, there's one thing that really affects public order, and that is, well, first of all, I want to talk about a building called martial law. So let's quickly find it here. Yeah, it's martial law. So martial law really affects the population growth, tax income, and public order due to happiness. But it increases public order due to law by 50%, and it reduces religious conversion to religions that are not your state religion, okay, depending on your faction. And that's actually a nice building. Let's say if you conquer, I don't know, Constantinople as Sicily, and public order is really bad, you can construct martial law. And actually, martial law, I should say, has a final level. So after martial law 3, you actually get a building called subjugation. And subjugation actually gives you quite nice bonuses. Excuse me. And subjugation is actually something you would want because there are provinces that are supposed to be not easy to control, like perhaps Irish provinces or certain provinces in Asia Minor. So, yeah. Additionally, sometimes the governor's building can spread religion. I've actually removed that for most provinces, but in some provinces, your governor's building spreads religion, and that can cause all kinds of public order issues depending on the province. It's always historically based. But again, for that, martial law will probably help. All right, and I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about Chivalry in terms of the basic guide and recruitment and buildings. So, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking the video. If you like videos about the historical Total Wars and their mods, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.